Hey, what's up guys? Hardleg Joe here with a What a Deck profile for the Dinomist Toolbox deck, as brought to you by Patreon sponsor Rocky. I'm just going to go through everything in here and then I'll explain how this works. So for monsters, we're playing 3 each of Dinomist Spinos, Rex, Ceratops, Brachion, Terran, Plesios, Stegosaur, and Ankleos. We're also playing 3 Deskbot 001 and 2 Effect Veiler. For spells, we've got 2 Pot of Riches, 3 Twin Twisters, and 3 Dinomist Charge. For our traps, just 3 Dinomist Howling. The extra deck is 1 Nirvana High Paladin, 1 Black Rose Dragon, 1 Goyo Guardian, Coral Dragon, Metaphys Horus, High Speed Roid Kendama, Armades, Ally of Justice Cataster, Cyber Dragon Infinity, Wind Up Arsenal Zenmayo, Cyber Dragon Nova, Bahamut Shark, Gear Gigan X, Castell, and Totally Awesome. Our side deck I'll go over in a moment. So this deck is a toolbox deck, which means it's kind of reactionary. It can do a whole lot of different things. Your Dinomists have a lot of effects, and you can swarm with them. You can make Synchros, you can make Ixies. So you just basically want to judge whatever your opponent has, what kind of field they make, and then you can make whatever you need to counter them. Of course, all that's based off of the Dinomist engine. Basically, all your Dinomists are pendulum monsters, and they come in 2 varieties. You either have Scale 3 or Scale 6. All the Scale 3 ones have the same pendulum effect, that if another Dinomist card you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can destroy this card instead. Which basically means if your opponent tries to Raigeki your field full of Dinomists, you can destroy one of your Scales instead of having them be destroyed. The Scale 6s, meanwhile, all have the same effect. That's before resolving a card effect that would target another Dinomist card you control, you can negate that effect, then destroy this card. So this protects you from any targeting if they try to Twin Twister your Scales or your back row, or if they try to use something like Castell on one of your monsters. This will negate that effect and then destroy the Scale. Now working in tandem with that engine, we've got Dinomist Charge. This is a continuous spell. When it's activated, you can add 1 Dinomist from your deck to your hand, so it searches. More importantly, once per turn, during either player's turn, if a Dinomist card is added from the field to your extra deck face up, you can add one of those to your hand. So what's great about this is, say you have your 3 Scale up, they Raigeki, you can prevent your monsters from being destroyed by destroying your 3 Scale, but instead of going to the extra deck, it comes back to your hand. And then you can play it again next turn, re-establish your Scales, and then Pendulum Swarm everything that you need. So that's pretty much the engine. The Dinomists themselves have monster effects I'll go over in a minute, but the important part is that you could summon these all out every turn, and then you're protecting them with your Scales, and you can add those Scales back to your hand with Dinomist Charge. So the first part of our toolbox is the Ixie toolbox. Because we're playing level 4 and level 5 monsters, you can make any rank 4 or rank 5 Ixie. In particular, all the Dinomists are machine type, which means you can use them to make Cyber Nova Dragon, which goes into Cyber Dragon Infinity. Really strong negation during either player's turn. Because they're all water monsters, you can use 2 of the level 4s to make Bahamut Shark, which you can detach to summon Totally Awesome. Totally Awesome, of course, like Cyber Dragon Infinity, lets you negate things. To have access to some of the strongest negation in the game, being able to make either one of those, in addition to just any rank 4 or rank 5s you want to put in here. I have a pretty small selection, but you could generally clear out some of these other ones to make it bigger if you wanted to go for an Ixie Turbo variant. As for the Pendulum monsters, we're playing mostly this Deskbot 001. This card gains 500 attack and defense for every machine-type monster you control, which, if you have a full field, can get it up to some pretty high attack, but that's not the important part. The important part is if 2 or more machine-type monsters are special summoned at the same time, while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. What that second effect means is basically you can Synchro Summon every single turn once you have the right setup. If you can Pendulum Summon 2 Dinomists out of your hand or out of the extra deck, you're summoning Despot 001. And when you Synchro Summon with Pendulums, they will go face up to the extra deck. This will go to the graveyard. And then next turn you can just Pendulum Summon the pieces back, which will let you get 001 back. And we've got quite a selection of level 5 and level 6 Synchro monsters in here, including Metaphys Horus, which is really good when you use Pendulum monsters for it, because it's non-targeting stealing your opponent's monsters. You can make Coral Dragon, who's a pretty good tuner. Even some things like Black Rose if you already have a level 6 and then using your level 1 tuner. You can even make Nirvana High Paladin, who's a pretty cool guy. He lets you use a Synchro monster, and instead of a tuner, you can use a Pendulum Summon Pendulum monster. So if you make one of your level 6 Synchros, and then Pendulum Summon one of your level 4 Dinomists, you can go into Nirvana High Paladin. Of course, like with the Ixie variant, you can do a lot of stuff with the Synchros. In particular, that's what most of this side deck is. We're also playing Effect Veiler because it's a level 1 tuner. Originally, I had in Ghost Ogre, who has a little bit more utility than Effect Veiler. and that opens up a lot more different levels of synchros, but the extra deck was becoming full. But if you wanted to get rid of some of these Ixies, ignore the Tree Toad and the Cyber Dragon Infinity, you could put this Ghost Ogre in here instead, and then you've got access to things like Ignister Prominence. You can make Crystal Wing a little bit easier, Stardust Spark Dragon. You can even do things like making a Excel Synchron and then going into Ultimate Tzolk'in with this Tuner Synchro and a non-tuner that you have. And then, yeah, getting to make things like Crystal Wing just by setting one of your traps. Of course, we don't play that many traps, so not the most optimal. But if you're playing a more synchro-heavy variant, you might want to put some more spell traps in there. So aside from just these two, the Synchro and the Ixie toolbox, your Dinomists themselves have kind of a toolbox element to them. They all have pretty neat effects. I'll just start down with Ankleos. This is banish any monster destroyed by battle with a Dinomist monster you control. Really good against some things like Burning Abyss, where you can attack into their monsters and banish them. Even other pendulums and stuff like that, if you can get past Magispectors. If you can destroy them by battle, then you're banishing them really strong. Stegosaur, this is if another pendulum monster you control battles your opponent's monster. After damage calculation, you can destroy both those monsters. This is really good non-targeting destruction. If you get this and any other Dinomist, you can crash your Dinomist into their monster and then destroy it, even if it normally wouldn't be destroyed. Plesios, this is all face-up monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each Dinomist card you control. So that includes your Scales, that includes your Dinomist spell traps. So you can usually get your opponent's monsters down on attack about 3, 4, up to about 900, which doesn't seem like that much, but a lot of your other Dinomist monsters have effects that activate when they attack or when they destroy a monster by battle. So being able to lower the attack just a little bit really helps with that. In particular, Terran, when this monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can add one Dinomist from your deck to your hand, and that's any card, so that'll search your spell traps as well. Brachion, meanwhile, if you don't control a Brachion and your opponent controls the monster with the highest attack, even if it's tied, you can special summon this from your hand. Ceratops, if all the monsters you control are Dinomist and none of them are Ceratops, you could special summon them from your hand. Not very good. I usually use these as Scales if I can help it, but in a pinch they can be used just to swarm out and get a little bit extra attack. And then your two big beater, your boss monsters, we got Dinomist Rex. At the end of the damage step, if this card attacks, you contribute one other Dinomist, and then activate one of these effects. Either this can attack an opponent's monster again in a row, and do piercing damage if it's a defense monster, or you could shuffle one card from your opponent's hand or their field into the deck, and that does not target. The shuffling from the hand is random, which isn't great, but I mean, it's still removing cards from their hand. So if you can get this out with another Dinomist, you attack with your Smallow Dinomist first, then you attack with Rex, tribute your Dinomist, and then you're sending something back from their hand or field into the deck. In addition, when it uses that second effect, it gains 100 attack. Not much, but it gets it up to 25, and if you keep using it, then you can actually get up to like 3,000 or so. Our other one is Dinomist Spinos. You contribute one other Dinomist to activate one of these effects. Either this card can attack your opponent directly, or this card can make 2 attacks. Again, not the greatest, kind of situational, but there are certain things where you need that 2,500 to attack directly, or you need to destroy a bunch of things they control, and this can really help, especially with some of your smaller Dinomists. And of course, when you tribute your Dinomists, they go face up to the extra deck, so you can always just pendulum summon them back out again. As for the rest of the cards, I already went over 001. Effect Veiler is just another level 1 tuner, a little bit of monster effect negation. You could just as easily play Ghost Ogre, although it makes the extra deck a little bit more cramped. I just like this because now all our tuners are level 1, so it's a little more consistent getting out what you need to get out. Pot of Riches, shuffle 3 Pendulum monsters into the deck from your graveyard, or face up from your extra deck to draw 2 cards. This is really good recovery. If you use your monsters for Xyz material, they go to the graveyard, you can't Pendulum summon anymore. This lets you recycle them. I'm only playing 2 because we don't always go into the Xyz, but if you wanted to make a more Xyz-centric variant, this could be a really good card to maybe bump up to 3. We're playing Twin Twisters just for some back row removal because Solemn Strike will really screw over this deck. Dinomist Charge I already went over, and then Dinomist Howling, our only trap, and a damn good trap at that. This is actually pretty amazing. When it's activated, you can place up to 2 Dinomist Pendulum monsters from your deck into your Pendulum Zones. Not only good for completing things if your Pendulum Zones get destroyed, but because they destroy themselves in order to save your Dinomists, and because it's up to 2, you can just destroy one of them and then place another Dinomist in your Pendulum Zone so you're ready to go next turn. In addition, once per turn during either player's turn, you can tribute 1 Dinomist, then target 1 card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Very, very strong effect. Really makes the deck very stun-worthy and adds to the toolbox element. The only other thing I haven't mentioned is the side deck. Most of it I went over, like I said, just other options for a Synchro heavy variant. You can also go into an Ixie heavy variant. You can make things like Tyrus. You can make things like Heavy Armored Train Wolf, which is actually pretty good for this deck. Limiter removal, really good in this deck because it's all machines. I just don't play it because I don't like cheesy, sacky one-ofs. But if you're going for a competitive, definitely go for that. And Dynamic Power Load. This is all Dinomist, gain 300 attack and defense. And if a Dinomist card battles, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects into the damage step. Not good enough to main deck, but against certain decks, especially decks that have a lot of floater monsters or decks with a lot of traps, like Mirror Force, like Battle Traps, this can be really, really useful as a side deck card. Maybe get rid of your Twin Twisters. Instead of destroying it, just make it so they can't activate things when you attack. So there you go, Dinomist Toolbox. Not the best possible build you could get. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier, but this is kind of made to show off all the different things you can do. I think a pure Ixie or a pure Synchro or a pure pendulum-focused beatdown would work a lot better. But hopefully, from seeing this, you can get an idea of how Dinomists work, and then use this as a template to build a really, really great deck. Next week, I'll be playing a complete surprise, a complete secret, but it's probably one of the best decks I've ever made, so look out for that. Until then, good luck, and have fun.